Good morning, Knights. This is Mrs. Hackensmith coming to you. Today is Tuesday, April 21st. So yesterday we did some pre-reading in our packet for Lions at Lunchtime. And we talked about the text features that we saw on the title. We talked about the title. We talked about the author, Mary Pope Osborne. And we talked about where the setting is. And we read on the back blurb that the setting takes place in Africa. And then we took some time to think about, what do we know about Africa? And hopefully you said it was a continent. Africa is a continent. And part of Africa are these grassy plains where a lot of different big, large animals live. So we can tell that the lions live here, the giraffes live here, and we're going to be reading about some other animals that live in this grassy plains area of Africa as we get into the story. So today, if we get our matrix out for reading, it tells us that we are going to watch the YouTube video. And we are going to begin reading Lions at Lunchtime. You're supposed to follow along in your book, but remember, we don't quite have the books yet. So I'm going to put my book under the camera, and you can read along with me the way we did for the dinosaur book. We are going to read chapters 1 and 2. And then after that, I'm going to show you pages 3 and 4 in your reading packet for the book. So I'm going to go ahead and get the camera set up, and this will give you time to go get your reading packet, Lions Before Lunchtime. And then we're going to go right into the math too. So why don't you get your Check My Progress paper and your pencil, and then you'll be all set. All right, I'll see you in a few seconds. Okay, so here is our book, Lions at Lunchtime by Mary Pope Osborne. Table of contents. Today we're going to read chapters 1 and chapter 2. So chapter 1 is Before Lunch, and chapter 2 is called Jump Beasts Jump. Chapter 1, Before Lunch. Jack and Annie were walking home from the grocery store. Jack's pack was heavy. It held a big jar of peanut butter and a loaf of bread. "Are you going to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?" said Annie. "Or a peanut butter and honey sandwich?" Jack started to answer, but stopped. "Oh, man," he whispered. "What is it?" said Annie. "Look at that," said Jack. It's like a deer right here of some sort. He pointed to the edge of the Frog Creek woods. In the shadows stood a small, delicate animal. It looked like a tiny deer. "It's a sign," whispered Annie. "Remember when we saw the rabbit? He was a sign of the Wild West." The deer-like creature leaped into the woods. Jack and Annie didn't stop to think. They followed as fast as they could. Jack's heavy pack thumped against his back as he ran. Finally, they stopped and looked around. "Where did he go?" he said. "I don't see her," said Annie. "Oh, wow," said Annie. She pointed up. There was the magic tree house. It was shining in the noon sun at the top of the tallest tree in the woods. Its rope ladder swayed in the shadows below. "Where's Morgan?" asked Annie. Morgan Le Fay wasn't waving at them from the window. She wasn't even at the window. Now, Morgan Le Fay is a character that is new in this story, but she has been in the other stories also. Remember, this is book 11. And so Morgan Le Fay shows up in the other stories that come before this. And I'll talk a little bit more about her in a little bit. I don't know. Let's go up, said Jack. They climbed the ladder and went into the treehouse. Sunlight streamed through the window. It lit a stack of books and 2 scrolls in the corner. The ancient scrolls held the answers to riddles Jack and Annie had solved earlier. Jack took off his heavy pack. Did Morgan leave us a 3rd riddle? Said Annie. Looking for someone? Said a soft voice. Jack and Annie whirled around. Morgan, said Annie. All right. So this is a picture of Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay is a magical librarian, and she shows up in each story to help the kids find what they need to find when they go on their adventure. Remember in the dinosaur book, Jack found the golden medallion with the letter M on it? The book didn't tell us what that was all about until you get into book 2 and 3 and so forth. Now, in books 9, 10, 11, and 12, they have to go back into time and they have to find the answer to a riddle. And by doing this, they are proving to Morgan Le Fay that they can be magical master librarians too, because that's what Morgan is. She is a librarian, a magical one. So she is the person who helps guide them on their missions. And this is mission number 3. Remember they found the 2 scrolls? Those were the answers for the first 2 riddles. And now they have to go and find the answer to the 3rd riddle. Now, Morgan can change herself into different creatures. So in book 1, she changed herself into the pteranodon. Remember how the pteranodon saved Jack's life when the T-Rex was after him? That pteranodon was really Morgan Le Fay, who was sent there or went with them with the Magic Tree House to help the children. So that's who she is. All right, so let's continue reading now. Morgan Le Fay had appeared out of nowhere. She looked ancient and lovely in the bright sun. Do you still want to become master librarians? She asked Jack and Annie, so you can help me in my work? Yes, they said together. Wonderful, Morgan said. Then she reached into her robe and pulled out a scroll. You've solved 2 riddles so far, she said. Here is your 3rd. She handed the scroll to Annie. And for your research, she pulled a book out from her robe and handed it to Jack. The book's cover said, The Plains of Africa. So just like how we thought about Africa and what we know about Africa, Morgan wants them to take this book with them to help them on their trip when they go to Africa. Africa, said Jack. Oh man, I've always wanted to go there. He opened the book. He and Annie stared at a picture. It showed hordes of zebras, tall giraffes, big animals with horns, and tiny deer-like creatures. Hey, that's the animal that led us here, said Annie. A Thompson's gazelle, I believe, Morgan said. Where are the lions? Said Jack. You'll find out, said Morgan. Maybe we need to plan this trip, said Jack. Morgan smiled. No, go ahead. Make your wish now. Annie pointed at the picture. I wish we could go there, she said. Be careful, said Morgan. Just keep an eye out. For what? Said Jack. The lions, of course, she said. "Wait," said Jack. Too late. The wind had started to blow. The tree house had started to spin. Jack squeezed his eyes shut. The tree house spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. And this is how it happened in the dinosaur book, isn't it? Okay. Chapter 2. Big tall giraffe. There's some zebras. Chapter 2. Jump, beast, jump. Bright light flooded the treehouse again. A rustling sound came from outside the window. Annie peeked out and laughed. "Hey there," she said. Jack looked out too. A giraffe was eating leaves off the tree. It had a sweet, goofy face. Jack peered at the world beyond the giraffe. He couldn't believe his eyes. He saw a huge grassy plain, a wide river, and tons of birds and animals. More than he had ever imagined in one place. Giraffes and zebras were on the side of the river where Jack and Annie were. Thompson's gazelles and the big horned animals were on the other side. "Where are the lions?" said Jack. "I don't know," said Annie. "Do you think it's always this crowded?" "Let's find out," said Jack. He picked up the book on Africa and looked at the picture of the animals. He read aloud. Remember, this is the part that gives you the facts about whatever the story is about. Every year in late spring, thousands of zebras and gazelles and millions of wildebeest migrate from the dry plains of Tanzania to Kenya. So Tanzania and Kenya are different countries in Africa. "What's migrate mean?" said Annie. Jack pushed his glasses into place. "It means they go someplace else for part of the year, like birds going south for the winter." "Oh, yeah, right," said Annie. Jack turned the page to read more. "Before they are safe in Kenya, the animals must first cross the Mara River. Zebras go first, then the wildebeest. The tiny gazelles swim last." "Oh," said Annie in a sad voice. "What's wrong?" said Jack. "Poor beasts." She looked out the window. "They seem afraid." On the far side of the river, the horned animals were standing at the edge of the steep bank of the river. They stared down nervously at the rushing water. "Jump, beasts, jump!" Annie shouted. "Don't be silly. They can't hear you," said Jack. He studied the broad plain. "I wonder where the lions are," he said. "I don't know, but I have to go," said Annie. "Go where?" said Jack. "To the river to help them," she said. "Help who?" said Jack. "Those wild beasts on the other side," said Annie. "I have to help them migrate." "Are you nuts?" said Jack. Annie handed Jack the scroll and started out of the treehouse. "Wait a second," said Jack. "We haven't even read Morgan's riddle yet." Annie stopped on the ladder. "Read it now," she said. Jack unrolled the ancient scroll and read aloud. "I'm the color of gold and as sweet as can be, but beware of the danger that's all around me. What am I?" Annie started down again. "Annie, we'll look for the answer in a minute," said Annie. "What are you doing?" Jack called. But there was no stopping her. Jack watched as she hopped off the ladder. Then she started to walk through the tall grass. between the zebras and giraffes. "I don't believe her," he said to himself. He quickly put the Africa book into his pack. He started down the ladder. When he stepped onto the ground, he looked around carefully. The zebras were eating the tree leaves. The giraffes were eating the tree leaves. The zebras were grazing in the grass. Tons of birds flapped overhead. Well, this is okay, he thought. He just had one little question, and you probably know what that is. Where are the lions? Alrighty, so those are chapters 1 and 2. Now the matrix tells us to look at pages 3 and 4 in your packet. So page 3 is part 1 about comprehension. You're going to do questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If you need to, you can go back through the video and you can stop it and you can reread the pages to help you find the answer to these questions. So you're going to do 1 through 7 on this page. And then turn the packet over, and here's page 4. This first page, page 3, is only for chapter 1. So you'll find your answers in chapter 1. Page 4, these are the questions for chapter 2. Again, we have comprehension questions, and then we have a critical thinking question down at the bottom. Alrighty, so go ahead and get these done, and then if you would, you can put them on Seesaw side by side. You can take a picture of them, and then you can tell me about your answers. But if you're not able to do that, we will go over the answers tomorrow. Alrighty. Okay, so that's reading for today. Go ahead and bring out your Check My Progress paper. Remember, it was 547, and you were asked to do page 1. We're going to go over the questions, over the answers that you put. So let's take a look at the vocabulary check. Number 1, in a survey, you collect data by asking people the same question. So your answer was survey, and of course you have it spelled correctly because the word is up here in the word bank. Number 2, a key tells what or how many each symbol stands for. The word key. Number 3, a picture graph has different pictures to show information collected. So you should have filled in the third blank with the words picture graph. Okay, does yours look like mine? All right, down here at the bottom, I gave you information to fill out the tally chart. So let's go ahead. We had 3 people like the color blue, 2 people like the color pink, 2 people liked the color green, and 3 people liked the color purple. So we had some ties here. Use the data in the chart to answer the question. So number 4, what color do people like the most? It was a tie between blue and purple, both of them liking, both of them had 3 people that liked those 2 colors the most. Number 5, how many people like pink and green? Now this was an addition problem. So pink had 2 people, green had 2 people. When you add those 2 together, you got 4 people who liked pink and green the best. What color do people like the least? Again, we had a tie. 2 people liked pink, 2 people liked green. So pink and green tied for the least favorite color. Okay, does your chart and your answers look like mine? Alrighty. So today, if we get the matrix out, it says, check my progress. Complete numbers 7 through 12 on page 548. So you're just going to turn your paper over, 548 at the bottom. you're going to do numbers 7 through 12. So take a look at the top. Use the tally chart to make a picture graph. It's about your favorite toy. We've got jump ropes, baseballs, inline skates, which are like roller blades, and a bike. So you're going to take the tally marks from over here on this chart and you're going to make a picture graph on this chart. Let's look at our key. Each picture equals 1 vote. Then you're going to answer some questions by looking at the graphs. How many more votes did bike get than baseball? So you're going to have to compare bike and baseball. And remember, when it says, how many more, what do you do when you hear those words? Number 9, how many people like jump ropes and inline skates? So here's the word and. So we want both of them. So that tells you that you're going to add those two data marks together. Okay, I'm going to leave the rest of that up to you. Let's take a look at the brain builders. Number 10. How many more people voted for bike and jump rope all together than voted for baseball and inline skates all together? Now this sounds to me like it's one of those multi-step process here. So we've got the words how many more, so you know what that tells you what you're going to do. Now, voted for bike and jump rope. You've got that word and that word and tells you you're going to add. And then you've got the words all together, which tell you you're going to add. So how many more people voted for bike and jump roping than voted for baseball and inline skates? So here's another and here are the words all together here. So that tells you that you're going to do some adding here. Then after you get these two added up, then you have to do what how many more tells you to do. So once you get these answers, you're going to want to fill in your equation here, your number equation, number sentence. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for you. I've given you lots of clues. Let's take a look at number 11. If 3 more people vote for jump rope, so if 3 more people vote for jump rope and 1 more person votes for baseball, which toy is the favorite? Okay, so you're going to have to go back up here to your chart and you're going to have to add on to the jump rope row, and you're going to have to add on to the baseball row, and then you're going to have to figure out which toy is the favorite. So this is what you're answering. Which toy is the favorite then? Okay, number 12. 2 students did not vote. If those 2 students all voted for inline skates, which toy would have the most votes? So if these 2 students voted for inline skates, then which toy would have the most votes? And then you're going to look at your chart and then color in the bubble for the correct answer. Alrighty, so we will correct this tomorrow. This is what you need to finish for math. Pages 3 and 4 of your packet for Lions at Lunchtime. And then you are done with your math and your reading for the day. And then you can enjoy yourself. All right, I will see you again tomorrow. Make sure you get these done. Again, if you get these done and you want to put them on Seesaw, go right ahead and I will take a look at your work. Thanks. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.